Hi guys! How's it going? Welcome to episode 13 of Living Well. I am your host, Lindsay. Today we have a really exciting show for you because we are bringing on someone who is very near and dear to my heart, as well as wrote a bunch of songs on my record with me, specifically the song that came out last week. It's a song called Make You, and it's a song I wrote about my story. And oh my goodness, it's been such a crazy past week. Thank you so much for all of your comments and your messages. I love hearing your stories and love hearing how much you've fallen in love with this song. A huge thank you to People Magazine for writing an article about it. I mean, yesterday we were #1 most added on country radio, which is insane for Want Me Back. And so thank you guys. I love you so much. And I'm really excited about our next guest. So I will intro her now. An American country music singer-songwriter, originally from Morton, Washington, her songs have been recorded by Sheryl Crow, Miranda Lambert, The Band Perry, Reba McEntire, Leanne Rimes, Billy Currington, Darius Rucker, and Casey Musgraves. She was nominated for Best New Artist at the 2015 Grammy Awards. I call her the female John Prine of our time. Please welcome Miss Brandy Clark. Hi, Brandy. How's it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm so good. Are you surviving in this crazy quarantine?
I think I'm kind of like everybody is, like good days and bad days.
Yeah.
I'm sure much like you, I try to stay busy and luckily I've been busy. But it's making me appreciate certain things that I have taken for granted.
Yeah.
I flew yesterday. Have you flown since this started?
I haven't.
Okay.
Which is crazy because I used to be on a plane like 6 days a week. And so how was it? How was the plane?
Well, it's definitely a different experience. I used to be a really scared flyer. I got past that when I made my first record and had to go out and promote it. But I was really a very scared flyer before then. And I was thinking yesterday, I'm so glad I got past that because there is a lot more claustrophobia with a mask on all the time.
That's so true.
Yeah, I flew from LA to Nashville, which, LAX is a huge airport. It doesn't feel like LAX usually feels because there just aren't as many people. But you're definitely in, or at least me, in that mode of, oh, I touched something, I better sanitize, I want to drink water, but do I take my mask off,
Oh my gosh. And do they socially distance still on the plane?
Well, I was on Southwest and every middle seat was empty.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, and it was when I was getting on, I saw something that said it was 55% full, but I think it was fuller than that. But I felt definitely safe, and they said there must have been some people sitting next to each other because they said don't sit next to somebody unless you live with them.
Right. Which makes sense.
Yeah, the plane feels safe. The airport feels safe. It's just so different. You think about how much complaining there is over. I remember when I got TSA pre-check, I thought, I can never go back. I can never go back to taking my shoes off and taking my computer out. This makes all of that feel like, wow, we were really lucky,
No kidding. I can only imagine. And do they even hand out snacks and stuff on the plane, or have they taken all of that out?
They did. I didn't take any.
Right.
But they did. They handed out water and then I think peanuts or pretzels.
Yeah.
It was a light snack service. But I just put my mask on and, didn't drink anything. So I to go to the bathroom. Let's just get there.
Yeah, no kidding. My goodness. Okay, well, you've had a busy quarantine because you just released a new album. Your Life is a Record. Let's first talk about this album. How is this album different for you than the other music you've released, and what's it like putting out more of a personal project?
Great question. I mean, since your project's also very personal,
I know.
um, it was different. This is different for me. I realized how much of the role of a storyteller I like to take on, because that's really a lot of what I've taken on my first two records, and I still love that role. Like, that's not going away, you know. But I realized as these songs were, you know, how songs are, how records are. There'll be one song that everybody on your team sort of starts to feel like, oh, it's time to make a record, and you start building around that. But what really was bubbling up were all these first person songs. And I started to realize as it was time to go into the studio, wow, I've never recorded so many first person songs. That was my first thought, you know, really close to it. And then Jay Joyce, who produced this record, he sat down with all the songs and was listening, and he called me and he was like, this is a breakup record. I said, oh, and I had gone through a big breakup, but you know, when you're so near it, you don't really think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, I'm just going in and writing songs every day, and depending on the room and who's in it, that's going to be different, you know. So I was just writing what was going on with me and what was going on with other people. But it, yeah, that part was different, and that was definitely a vulnerable a vulnerable thing. And I realized it was a good thing, because the way people responded to, I thought, oh, there are too many sad songs. And I actually got a letter from somebody that said, thanks for writing all those sad songs. So I was like, you know, I need to just quit assuming that people aren't going to like what I like. And the biggest difference for me though was I went into this record with more of a sonic concept than I ever have. We were going to cut all acoustic. We did for a while. And then Jay came to me and said, how could we make this different than every other acoustic driven singer-songwriter record? And we came up with the idea of strings, and he came in with the idea of using the Memphis strings and horns players. And so we did that for a couple songs and we loved it. And so that became our concept. And I've never approached and this is terrible because I'm 3 records in, but I've never thought about records from a sonic point of view. That's a huge difference. I've always just thought conceptually, like,
Awesome.
oh, this record is this. And like my first record, 12 Stories, when I was making that, I made that record with Dave Brainerd. We were thinking of it as either the life of a relationship or the day in the life of one woman. It ended up being neither of those things, but it made it cohesive. And then Big Day in a Small Town, when I wrote that song, I knew that day, oh, I want to make a record that everything to me takes place in this same small town. So I never thought sonically until now. So that's a different palette.
I love that so much. And I'm such a music nerd that I often start sometimes sonically, and until now just have written arguably kind of a concept record. But okay, so Jay Joyce is such a brilliant producer. I've never worked with him, but so people watching know, I mean, he's worked with Eric Church, Little Big Town, Cage the Elephant, Brothers Osborne, Ashley McBride, of course, yourself. So what is it like working with a producer like that, where he's just so brilliant and thinks of so many, I mean, I've only read this really in stories or heard from friends, but thinks of just so many off the wall ideas. Like, did a lot of that, you know, sonic brainstorming come from Jay?
Oh, 100%. You know, Jay, like I feel like I've been lucky to work with some real genius people. Jay is hands down the most creative person I've ever met. He lives for creativity. I mean, when I was working with him, you know, I don't know how much he really sleeps. Like, he's just constantly creating. He paints a lot. So when he's not working on music, he's doing something else creative. And he, like, even the idea of the all acoustic tracks, when I presented that to Jay, it was because I thought he's known for a really more of an aggressive sound, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool with someone like him to challenge him to go all acoustic? And he was so excited about that I started to get a little bit scared. And I said, now Jay, if we need an electric sound somewhere, we can do that. And he was like, oh, I know, but it's good for me to paint myself in a corner. That he's like, that's how we'll work best. He doesn't want to repeat himself. He really, I wish I could be a lot more like Jay in a lot of ways. Like he never seems tied to the outcome. You know, we get tied to the outcome of whatever it is we're doing. He's so busy creating. I don't think he's ever tied to the outcome of a project because he's just on to the next thing he's creating.
That's amazing. I love being able to just watch creative minds like that work and how excited they get about just making things up, you know?
Oh, here's an example. Like on the song, the last song on the album is called Past is the Past. It was the first song we went in and did any pre-production on. Mm-hmm. And so Giles Reeves, who plays all the percussion on this record, he had Giles playing this really broke down kit, and he just set a banjo on top of one of the drums. So to just change the sound of what was happening and to change the way Giles was playing, to either play around that or use it. I mean, if you ever get the opportunity to work with him, do it. Because I've done 2 records with him now, and he raises the bar for you. Like, I would never think, it was a given that I was going to make another record with Jay. I didn't think that. I knew he would have to be inspired enough to want, like from what he heard, to want to work with me again. Yeah. And I think that's good. Like, because I feel like Jay really only does things he gets inspired by. We should all do that a little more.
We should all do that a little bit more. If there's one thing I've learned in quarantine, it's only let's do things that we really, really care about. My goodness. Okay, so I want to go back to the very beginning. You went to college on a basketball scholarship?
I did.
Which is so crazy to me. Like, what made you, because I'm assuming that you were doing music before then. So what made you take a break from music and focus on basketball?
So this is a great question. Not very many people have ever asked me about that. I started playing guitar when I was 9, and I always think my 9th birthday was a great, it really showed, when I tell you this thing, it really exemplified who I was and who I was going to be. My dad got me a softball mitt. My mom got me Patsy Cline's Greatest Hits on cassette.
I love
it.
And
those 2 things were passions. Like, so I started playing guitar at 9. You know, I was like, I think a lot of kids with an instrument, I would be interested and then I would lose interest. My parents were really great at always fostering whatever my brother and I wanted to do. So we took lessons. I took guitar, he took violin. But I got really into sports, and sports, you know, at that point, it takes everything. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of sports for me, my dad was a really good athlete, and I loved that. I got a lot of drive from it. I got a lot of drive from watching him, but it was a way to fit in a small town. Sports were really my way in. Absolutely. And I played all sports, but basketball was my best. But it's funny because, so I played basketball, but at the end of my senior year, so I kind of let music go. At the end of my senior year, I started to get back into music. Wow. And I just became, you know, obsessed with it again. And I went to play basketball on a scholarship. And honestly, I was really not ready to leave home. I was really a mama and daddy's girl. Yeah. And I moved home. So I gave up my scholarship and moved home, started going to a community college near where I grew up. And the coach of that team had coached in the league that I had played in high school and wanted me on the team. And so I started going to open gyms. But I remember feeling like, I'm just not into this anymore. And I remember going into his office and saying, hey, you know, this isn't for me. And it wasn't like we were in season. It was just open gyms, but I would have played the next year. And I'm taking a spot from someone who it is for, and my heart's not in it. And he was like, are you sure? And I said, yeah, I'm positive. I left there. My mom was with me. We went to a music store. I bought a guitar. And then it was just like, I just switched passions completely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy. That's amazing.
And sometimes I get mad at myself. Like, why did I, sometimes I think, would I be in a different spot if I would have just done music? But then I think, well, sports really gave me drive that I wouldn't have gotten from playing music at that age.
Absolutely. I am a huge proponent of everything we go through in our life makes you who you are. We will get to that in a minute. But
That was a good segue.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
So you've written a ton of songs, and you are one of my favorite storytellers.
Oh, thank
And you've written a ton of songs for so many other artists. When was that changing or turning point when you decided you wanted to be an artist as well as a songwriter?
That's another great question. So when I moved to Nashville, I definitely wanted to be an artist, wanted to have a record deal. I went to Belmont. I really got into the craft of songwriting, and I was playing a ton of writers' nights. But what I was seeing was my friends that were getting like record deals and having success were way more into the things that I'm clearly not. Hair and makeup. I mean, as you can tell from this interview.
Whatever, you look gorgeous.
A bit of mascara on today. But so I saw that and I thought, and I didn't think anything was wrong with that at all, but I just thought, that's just never going to be me. Like I was way more into writing songs. And, I turned 30 and then I thought, oh, I'm too old to be, to get a record deal now. I mean, at that time, it was like, if you didn't have a deal by you were like 24, you were old. And so right about the time I gave it up is when it came around. And so I was just writing songs, and it was kind of one of those things, like when you let it go, boom, it comes to you. I was starting to get cuts, and then Emily Marchbanks, who was my first manager, who approached me. I mean, I thought somebody was playing a joke on me for a minute, like, because Emily's a really funny person, and so I just, I was like, what's going on here? Like, and she approached me, and at the time was at Fitzgerald Hartley and was working with a guy named Terry Elam, and they said, hey, we'll help you make a record. And it was just like, whoa. And that same week, Reba McEntire cut 2 of my songs, which she had cut songs of mine before, but they had fallen off of projects. And so it felt like all this, if I could live 1 week of my life again and again and again, it would probably be that week. Because nothing had really happened for me, but all of a sudden everything was possible again. And this dream that I thought there was no way anymore I could have was back. And so that's how it happened. And a lot of people have said to me, wow, it must have been hard to choose that since you were having hits as a writer. I wasn't. I always say I was a failed songwriter turned artist versus a failed artist turned writer, because my first album was a lot of frustration of songs that weren't cut. Things like Hold My Hand that I just felt like, man, I can't believe somebody won't record that song. And it all made sense to me that, okay, well, I'm supposed to record some of these songs, but that's how it happened. And it really is that case of letting it go and then boom, it comes back to you.
That is so cool. I mean, Hold My Hand. What a song. I loved that we got to tour the world together. We got to go to Australia and New Zealand and Japan and play writers' rounds for countries that don't normally get that kind of show, which was so cool. And I love being able to hear you play, some of your own cuts and some of your massive hits. You've had some huge songs on some artists. I want to ask you, like, writing a hit song, did you ever have the feeling like leaving the room, like Mama's Broken Heart or Better Dig 2, or we could go on and on and on of all of these massive song titles, but did you ever have the feeling leaving the room of like, okay, that's it right there, like that's something special?
Definitely always that's something special. Never have I thought, oh, that's a hit song and it's been. I mean, there have been times where I'm like, that's a hit. If I know a hit, that's a hit. Never. Songs like, you Better Dig 2, Mama's Broken Heart, those songs were so different, and I always loved different. And so I just knew they were really good. And I fought for them as far as where they ended up, especially Better Dig 2. I mean, that song had a very long journey, and I fought at every step for that song to not be given up on, for it to not end up. I felt really strongly Van Perry should have it, and it wasn't looking like it was going to go that way. And I was like, no, we have to hold out for this. And so, I knew with that, like, I just had a feeling about that song, just because I knew it was special. I didn't know if it was a hit. I've had a lot more misses than I've had hits, but you just kind of know. I mean, you know that too. When something resonates with you, you just know.
Yeah, you definitely know that something is special. That's a good way of putting it. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, I am so grateful that we were able to write together for this album.
Me too.
And I remember the day that I decided I wanted to finally write a song about my story as a little girl. And when I was thinking, okay, who could help me write this song? Brandy Clark was the first name that popped in my head. And I remember calling you and asking you if you would be open to writing a song like this. And you so fearlessly said yes. And I I just want to ask you, like, what did you really think? Like, was this a hard song compared to write to others?
Mm. Well, it's interesting, and I've had so many, texts from people since you've released the song about how much it means to people, and that makes me really proud. But I really, honestly, it was not hard. I was really proud of you that you wanted to go there, because it's a hard thing to even talk about, much less write and sing about. And we had never written, even though I felt like I knew you from being on the road. We had been on the Next Women of Country tour. You're always just a joy. We had done the thing overseas, and so you really think you know somebody as well as you know somebody riding around in a van and stuff. And so when you told me that, I was really shocked, but not shocked, because I know a lot of people, actually, I was going to say women, but I know men too, that at some point along the way are sexually assaulted, and they don't really talk about it. And so it was easy to me because it was your story. And I remember I felt like the hardest part, and it wasn't even hard, was to just talk you into saying it the way you were saying it. Like when you said it hit you like a race car, I remember thinking, oh, that's great. And you're like, oh, I don't know if that's good
Can
enough.
we
I'm like,
say
no, no.
that? Yeah.
Like that to me was I loved when you were playing on piano, and it was easy. I think the truth is always easy if you can just get to it, because you don't have, it's like the difference between a lie and a truth. Like everybody always says, tell the truth, because you don't ever forget it.
Right.
And I think when you're telling the truth, you're just telling the story. And so to me, it was a very easy song to write. Probably way easier for me than you, because you had to live it and then relive it.
Well, I just have so much gratitude towards you for having the courage and just you're such an incredible and beautiful songwriter. I'm going to embarrass Brandy. I think she is the female John Prine.
Oh,
We were talking about this in some other conversation, and I was just like, if there is a soul on this planet who could fill that role, it would be you, Brandy. And
oh, thank you, Lindsay.
I have loved creating with you on this album, and thank you so much for writing this song, as well as we wrote How Good together, and I can't wait for everybody to hear that song. It's one of my favorites. It makes you want to dance. But I look up to you so much. I respect you as a human being, as a writer, as a friend, and thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your day to hang with us today.
Thank you. And Lindsay, I can't thank you enough. Just, for what you're giving the world. I see it like, I feel lucky to say that at this point in my life, I haven't had to be a survivor of sexual assault. I hope I never am. Because it definitely doesn't stop once you're an adult, but I just think you're so brave to, it feels very similar to me, different thing, but I remember writing Follow Your Arrow with Casey Musgraves. And I remember thinking like, wow, that's really brave that Casey would want to write that song. And then, wow, that's really brave that she put it on her album. And then, wow, she put it out as a single. I feel the same with this. I mean, this is a deeper, darker sort of thing. I mean, that song tackled issues in more of a communal way, where this is just your story, so it's way more intimate. But it's similar as far as the amount of courage I see, and that's rewarded. I mean, it might not be rewarded by Song of the Year. I sure hell hope it is. I mean, it's that, to me, it's that kind of song. I'm not just saying it because I'm on it. Other people have said it. But also just I hope you're rewarded in knowing that you're making a difference for people that don't have a voice. Like, you're giving a voice to people that are afraid to speak up. Yeah. So I just want to say that.
I mean, thank you for saying that. I feel that music is so powerful, and that it is like the connecting force sometimes to bring us together. It is that universal language. And, you know, the first time I went to this campus to talk to kids, I think we talked about it when we wrote the song 3 years ago, and they were all survivors, and they were aged 12 to 18 to this day. I mean, since we've released Make You, I've had so many people reach out to me in DMs and comments and just sharing their story. And it is crazy how much this happens. And I think it is about just being able to voice it, so that, you know, people can get support, or they can reach out if they need help, or they can just know that they're not alone in it, you know?
You're right.
Well, Brandy, I love you so much. Thank you for coming on Living Well. Welcome back to town. Maybe I can see you from a social distance, hopefully sometime soon.
Amazing.
I would love that.
I feel closer to everybody already. Like,
I know, right? You are. Awesome, Brandy. Well, we'll see you soon.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, Brandy, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you again for wanting to write with me. I still can't believe the first song we wrote together was Make You, but I love that girl so much. Guys, it is our favorite time of the week. It is time for the wELLisms of the week. All right, wELLism number 1. For 11 years, the search engine Escosia has used most of the revenue from advertising on its website and its app towards planting trees. And this month, they planted their 100 millionth tree. The German nonprofit website is doing so much in the world of mass tree planting, which started when scientists figured out that an increase in CO2 emissions could be countered by replenishing the world's forests. Escosia, thank you so much! That's amazing! 100 million trees? I mean, that's a big number, guys. All right, wELLism number 2. This school bus driver grew up in Tennessee and tried college for a few short years until he moved to Massachusetts and began driving a bus full of teenagers back and forth to school. Clayton Ward said he enjoyed working with high school kids so much, and during the bus routes, they would talk all about their classes. After time and time again, their words eventually got to Clayton and provided him the motivation to enroll at Mass Bay Community College, where he earned a spot on the dean's list every single semester and was inducted into the Phi Theta Kappa National Honor Society. He graduated with a perfect 4.0 average. Clayton, congratulations. A way to take students' motivation and put it into your own life. That's awesome. That's so awesome. All right, wELLism number 3. The Espanola tortoise program on the Galapagos Islands has been one of the most successful captive breeding programs ever undertaken in the world. Starting from the last remaining 15 Espanola tortoises, 1,900 offspring have been produced over the past 4 decades, and since have bred themselves, creating a population of 2,300 tortoises from the original 15 tortoises. Now all the turtles have made their way back home to the Espanola Islands 55 years later to live out the rest of their days in their new restored ecosystem. I love it. I love restoring endangered species. That's amazing. That's amazing. I love tortoises. Aren't those cute? They're so cute. Such a cute tortoise. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into episode 13 of Living Well. Thank you so much for Brandy Clark for joining us today. We'll be back next week with a very exciting guest, of which I will let you know in a few days. But always leave me a comment on who you want on the show. Please like this video and please subscribe to my channel. It means so much to me. And we'll see you guys next week. Bye.